Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
So, welcome back to the second lecture of this fourth week, and in this week we are talking about that how we can effectively implement a performance management system in the organization. Before we discuss it further, remember we talked about that we have to decide about the kind of evaluation form that we want to use, what kind of scale we want to use, right. And once it is decided about the form and the scale, then we develop a form and then we implement the performance management system. But before it is implemented, we also talked about that the trainer's role in rating the evaluators. So, that we are able to make sure that performance evaluation is accurate and consistent, and in the process what is important is that the raters need to be trained on various aspects. Remember, we also talked about supervisors' problem in evaluating the performance of the employees. So, they need to be trained. Remember, we talked about two kind of evaluations that is happening. One is related to behavior, the other one is related to results. Now, when it comes to evaluating results, there is not much problem because you have fixed performance standards, and these performance standards are objective and hard, and then you compare these performance standards with the achievement of the individual to see that whether he has achieved the desired goal or not. But when it comes to rating the behavioral competencies, the raters have lot of problems, right. So, it is very important that raters be trained in the process to ensure that they make correct observations of the behavior of the employees, so that it is properly rated, because this rating is going to decide a number of things like their performance, reward link, like their career growth, including promotions, maybe the development plan for the next cycle of the performance. Since we are going to decide about lot of issues related to the performance and its record, we have to ensure that this implementation takes place hassle free, right. So, in this process what we are going to discuss is that how we go about training individuals in observation of the behavior, and what is very important is that they should be trained about how to observe behavior, and that is what we know as behavioral observation training, right. The idea is that some of these unintentional errors can be minimized, right. Remember, we talked about two kind of errors that is made by the individual. One is intentional, the other one is unintentional. Intentional means where you try to rate people as average, or either you become too strict or too lenient, and that is we know as intentional error, right. But when we are talking about unintentional error, this kind of error takes place consciously or unconsciously, and it is in the back of the mind of the supervisor, and that is why sometimes he is not even aware that he is going to commit certain mistakes, right. So, they should be trained that how they are going to observe behavior, okay, so that they go for a proper recording of the behavior. Now, it is very important to ensure that they are trained in observation of the behaviors, right. So, that they are able to rate it, record it, and use this information for evaluating the performance, right. So, what is important here is that you look at the rater's skill in observation of the performance. Say for example, when we are talking about behavioral training and we say that we want to train them for behavior observation, right. So, when we say that we want to train for behavior observations, so behavior observation, behavior are defined as the competencies, and these competencies say for example, we want to see say punctuality, is one competency, right. Then say problem solving, that is another competencies. Third competencies could be decision making, right. Fourth is integrity, fifth is trust, sixth is say interpersonal communication, right. Seventh is decision making, right. Eighth is leadership. Now, you see we have identified 8 competencies, right, which is to be observed among the employees. Now, the employees are going to perform certain behaviors which is related to basically the process. You know, we need to differentiate between the process which leads to outcome, that is the result which is achieved by the individual. So, we are not going to only evaluate the outcome, but also the process. Now, these processes are very, very important. So, we need to identify the behavioral competencies here which contribute to the performance. Now, when we are going to identify these competencies for the purpose of the evaluation, what are the steps that we need to look at and whether employees are trained in that or not, so that they can go for proper evaluation. Now, first thing that is important is that each competencies must be defined properly. What does it mean? When you are talking about a particular competency, whether it is problem solving, whether it is decision making, or whether it is leadership, or whether it is trust or integrity, whatever it is. So, this need to be defined clearly, so that it helps the rater to understand which competency he is measured. Now, once you have defined it, the second stage in the process is that you need to identify the indicators of these competencies, because that is how we are going to measure. These indicators need to be identified, because if you are not able to identify the indicators, you will not be able to measure these competencies. For example, problem solving. Okay. So, you define what do you mean by problem solving? Okay. First, say for example, when you are saying problem solving, it means that whatever problem happens at the workplace, he is able to solve it with the help of his knowledge, skill and abilities. Okay. It means that he is arriving at a solution effectively using less time in a cost effective way to resolve the problems related to his duties and responsibilities, right. That is how we have defined it very clearly. What do you mean by problem solving? Next stage is that problem solving indicators. What are the problem solving indicators? So, you have to see that what kind of problems he is facing, okay, and in order to solve those problems, what he is doing, right. So, you need to indicate at least 3-4 behaviors which you relate with problem solving abilities, right. So, whenever a problem comes, what happens, what the individual does, what kind of activities he performs. So, indicators are basically related to activities which are going to be related to solve that problem, right. So, when I am talking about indicators related to a particular behavior or competency, you define it clearly and then you look at these indicators, right. And third thing is that once you know that okay, these are the indicators which are related to behavioral competencies of problem solving, then the third thing that you are going for observation. So, you need to observe whether these indicators are present in problem solving or not, okay. And here how effective or ineffective the person is when it comes to solving the problem, okay. So, you are also measuring the effectiveness of behavior by observation, because this is how it is going to help you to rate that behavior, rate the behavior, right. So, there are 4 steps that is to be followed in behavioral observation. First, you need to define the competencies. All the competencies that I have written here, it could be applied to all of them. So, first of all you will have to define all these competencies, because you are going to use them. Then you also need to look at the indicators of these competencies. Okay. They also need to be identified, because these are the activities which the person does to perform the behavior, right. Now, as a supervisor you are supposed to observe them, and then in order to see whether these behaviors are effective or not, you are going to rate them, and when you are going to rate the behavior, you are going to use a rating scale which is going to be descriptive in nature. Labels are clear or defined very clearly. So, rating scales are used, and that is how we are going to see that all the competencies are measured by the supervisors. Now, you need to be trained, especially because these two steps are pre-specified before the evaluation takes place. You need to be trained how to observe and then record, because after observation you are going to record it, and then based on this record, okay, you are going to rate this. So, observation and record both are very very important, and that is where you are likely to make an error. So, this error is to be minimized, and that is why you are going for training, that how to go about observation of the behaviors. Now, when you are going for observation of behaviors, there are certain ways that you can do it. Okay. Either you keep a note, or you are going to keep a diary where you keep on writing everything as and when it is observed by you, or you can also take help of audio visual aids to see that how the behavior are observed. So, you can also even capture the processes using audio visual aids to ensure that whether those particular behaviors are performed by the individual and what are these indicators, right. And that is how we go about behavioral observation training, which is very very important, right. So, that is what I was trying to emphasize on, that using this you can really see that people are trained and they do not make unintentional errors, okay, which could be related to supervisors traits, characteristics, temperament and personality. Okay. So, observers need to be trained that how they are going to observe, record it, right, and then based on this record use this information and then rate the performance. So, if they are trained in this kind of a skill, what will happen? They will be able to go for a better record, and they would be able to minimize unintentional errors, right. So, you can also use observational aids including diaries, notes. Today you know that we can use other kind of audiovisual aids like cameras, right, but the use of camera sometimes disturb the people and people become conscious to should be aware that whether you are going for non-participant observation or participant observation, or you can use these some of these audio visual aids without the knowledge of the individual to ensure that it is not going to affect with the functioning of the individual. Moving further, let us see if you are training a supervisor in behavioral training, what happens. Okay. Now, you already have pre-established behaviors for each performance dimensions. Say we have talked about performance dimensions related to integrity, trust, decision making, problem solving, communication, right. So, these are the dimensions of the performance, and for each of these performance dimensions you have established number of behaviors. What are the behaviors that you can relate with this? This is already pre-established. Okay. Then you are going to see how behavior is related with this one, right, within a given time frame, because evaluation is related to a particular time frame, right. So, what you are going to do is you are going to observe those incidents which are matching with these behaviors, right. So, if you are going to train the individual, what will happen? The person would be trained and he would be in a better position to observe those incidents which could be related with this one, right. For example, in a critical incident technique, what happens? In a critical incident, you are going to observe those incidents which lead to either very effective performance or ineffective performance, right. So, if you are going to be trained, you will be able to increase to see that what are those critical incidents which lead to either effective or ineffective performance, right. So, and if you are going to use certain aids, then probably you will be able to standardize the observational behavior. What I mean by standardizing the observational behavior? Because now you are writing with the help of a diary, or you are having certain mechanism to ensure that the processes are captured in some way. So, you have a standard record, because these records would help you to rate the appraisee, right. So, it is always good to have a record in the form of a diary or note or whatever it is. You can use electronic mediums also. So, once you are going to record these critical incidents for the review period, for the period in which the person is going to be evaluated, okay. So, it helps you to ensure that your rating is more accurate and consistent and you are not making an error, okay. So, because you are not going to do it immediately, maybe you are going to fill up the form after 6 months, appraisal form. So, when you are going to fill up the form after 6 months, you may not be remembering everything, but you have captured the processes in the form of a note or diary, critical incidents, then it would be very useful, and probably it would help you to see that you are not going to make these unintentional errors. So, there are a lot of benefits, and that is why it is very important that supervisors need to be trained, so that they are not biased, okay, in their evaluation. Moving further, another form of training that is given in addition to behavioral observation training is known as self leadership training. Now, what is self leadership? Self leadership means that is basically related to understanding individual, right. So, if you are going to train in this process, what are the benefits? Basically, this kind of training program is related to understanding of the individual about himself, right. So, if you better understand yourself, you know what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, what kind of biases you might be affected to, okay. You are trained in observations, right, then probably it would help you to better manage your performance, not only your performance, but also manage others' performance, right. So, that would increase your confidence in rating, because you have been trained. So, you better understand that how this job is done. So, this leads to more maturity, more self confidence in the individual who is going to train the who is going to rate the individual or their subordinates. Now, in the process when we are talking about self leadership, this training is happening in which area? So, if you look at the content of this training, it talks about positive self talk, mental imagery, positive beliefs and thought patterns. Now, let me explain each of these things. So, when we are talking about positive self talk or mental image, what does it mean? Mental imagery, what does it mean? Positive self talk means what? Self talk means what? You are going to talk about yourself. Okay. So, when you are going to talk about yourself, lot of things come to our mind, right? What I am doing, why I am doing it, whatever I am doing is worth doing it or not, whether it is good what I am doing or not, in what way it is going to benefit others, right. So, lot of things you think about yourself, which could be a matter of what you call self talk, right. This could be negative as well as positive. Now, the idea here is to develop positive self talk among the individual, so that they think positively, okay, not only about themselves, but about others, right. Second point is mental imagery. What kind of mental framework you have developed about the people and about yourself? So, if you have developed a mental framework about other people, that they are good, right, they are capable, they can perform well, then that is one thing. Suppose you have developed a mental framework about other people or even about yourself, that you are not good, others are not good, they will not work unless forced to do it, right. So, this kind of cognitive framework if you have developed, which might lead to negative thinking processes. So, the idea here is to develop your capability and all the barriers which might affect your mental framework in a negative way. So, you are going to develop a more positive mental framework and imagine those things which leads to better results. Okay. So, you can imagine that yes, people are good, they are driven by themselves, they would perform well if given all the opportunities and direction, right. So, this kind of thing is related to what you call a positive mental imagery, right. Third point is positive beliefs, right. Positive belief means believing in yourself and also believing in others. Do you believe in your subordinates, or do you believe in yourself? If you believe in yourself, right, then probably you are increasing the confidence level of yourself and also the confidence level of your subordinates, who will perform better. When I say that I can do, or I can win, or I can win and you can win. So, these examples suggest what? A positive belief about you as well as others, right. So, it is very important that these attributes or characteristics should be developed in the raters, because that would lead to a kind of leadership where people would understand in a better way about the things that is happening, right. And similarly, thought patterns, how you think. The way you think depends upon what? The kind of input that you have and how you are going to process that information, right. If you have very clear job description, communicated well, accountabilities are defined well, objectives are known to you, performance standards are known to you, right, then it would bring more clarity in your thinking, right. But if it is not, then you do not know how you are going to rate, right. So, make sure that your thought patterns are very clear, because these are the inputs which are going to be processed by you when you go for the rating, right. So, thought patterns basically related to your thinking mechanism, that how you process the information that is given to you. What kind of information? Related to the behavior and results of the employees. So, once you know that okay, these are the behavior and results of the employees, okay, and based on that you are going to process the information. So, how you are going to take up those things, right? It depends upon the way you process the information and your capability. Okay. If you have a positive belief, if you have developed a positive framework, right, then it would lead to better understanding, you will provide better direction, okay. You will be motivated to do this job. So, raters training is very important, so that you are motivated enough, you direct yourself to these kind of activities and you have confidence in doing this. So, self direction, self motivation and confidence is very important, okay, and that can be developed through self leadership training. I have given you certain examples. With the help of these examples, you can understand that how leadership training, where you are trying to help the individual to understand themselves better, their cognitive ability, their framework, with what kind of belief systems they have, how they process the information. So, if they are clear about it, probably they would be in a better position to do the rating job, right, and they would be more accurate in the process. So, the idea here is that you are focusing on certain intrinsic factors, right, because these things have intrinsic value. This is not external, this is related to the individual itself. So, this is related to the characteristics of the people who is going to be trained. So, remember we talked about behavioral observation training. What we said in behavioral observation training? That you are going to train them that how to observe, record and rate behaviors, right. But in order to observe, rate and behavior, your own characteristics might influence, right, which might lead to certain unintentional rating errors. So, in order to remove those unintentional rating errors, it is very important that you should be trained to understand yourself in a better way. So, that it increases your self confidence and also motivation to do a better job of rating, and you do not make much mistakes. Moving further, when you are going to design this kind of training, what happens? Okay. So, you are going to look at your belief systems, your assumptions, your self talks and mental imagery. See what is the current stage of that, what kind of belief systems you have, what kind of confidence level you have, whether you have a positive self talk or negative self talk, right, what are your assumptions about yourself and your subordinates, what kind of mental framework you have. So, first of all what you are going to do, you are going to talk about that thing. Then you see that whether they are good or not. So, you are going to analyze the functionality. Okay. So, you are able to uncover the pattern related to your own characteristics and behavior by analyzing these things, right. and see that you are able to move them from being deconstructive to make it more constructive, right. So, make sure that you are moving towards a more constructive approach by defining your belief systems, assumptions, self talk and mental framework, moving from a negative framework to a more positive framework, right. So, make sure that you are able to move it positively. Even if it is not done, then again you go for analyzing this, and so you are going to again do or go for step 1 again. So, once you are able to identify and develop more functional or constructive beliefs about yourself and others, okay, then what happens? You have a more positive self talk, more better mental image framework about yourself and others, right. So, make sure that you are led by more functional characteristics than this dysfunctional one, like a negative self talk or a low self confidence or low self esteem are going to be dysfunctional. If you are not motivated enough, okay, and you do not have confidence in rating, probably you are going to make more errors. So, it is very, very important to see that these kind of things are minimized and you are not able to do it, right. So, you continue monitoring and maintaining your own attitude and behavior in such a way, so that it leads to a more positive framework and you understand yourself better, and that would lead to better understanding of the individual. Related to this learning, self leadership learning, there is another kind of training that could be given to the individuals to minimize these unintentional error, and that is known as self efficacy. What is self efficacy? Okay. Self efficacy, what is your belief about yourself? Okay. Belief in your capabilities, belief in your strength, right. So, if these things are high, probably you will be in a better position. So, when we are talking about self efficacy training, especially for the raters who do a good job of evaluation, okay. So, the idea here is that if persons are trained in the area of self efficacy, that is understanding their worth, right, that is their belief, right, their confidence, their esteem, right, that yes, whatever they are doing, that is something that is worthwhile, that it contributes to the goals and objectives of the organization. They have the confidence that they are going to do a good job of rating, right. So, these kind of belief systems are very, very important, right, because when you are going to do a job of rating, basically you are going to rate others, right. So, it requires some kind of demands on the part of you, that how you are going to rate it. Okay. So, make sure that these interpersonal demands does not bring any kind of discomfort in you. Okay. If this brings certain discomforts, what happens? Then you become biased, okay, either intentionally or unintentionally, more so unintentionally, because consciously or unconsciously you do not think about these kind of biases, right. When I am talking about, say, a halo effect or horn effect or primacy effect or recency effect, you are not conscious about these kind of things, that you are making these unintentional errors. So, you need to be trained that you are going to do a good job, and in order to understand that, first you need to be trained in the behavior observation, then you need to understand about understanding yourself, and third is you need to develop a belief system that yes, you have the ability to rate accurately, right, and that would increase your effectiveness. This is what self efficacy means. So, it is very, very important that once you have this kind of belief, it is going to rule out the kind of discomfort that you will have with the rating, which would increase your rating in interpersonal context, right. So, how it is done? Basically, some kind of training program can be arranged for the raters, like you watch a videotape that how successfully people who are confident enough, who believe in themselves, do a good job of rating. So, that could act as a role model for them, right. Then you can discuss what are the specific behaviors that you have observed in the role, in the picture, and then how you are going to imbibe them in yourself, right. So, this could also be done through role plays, okay, where you are going to do certain things and then you are given a feedback that how well you have done the job of rating. So, that would increase your self confidence, believe in yourself, and then you will be able to do a better job of rating. So, self efficacy rating is also important. Then from self efficacy rating we move to pilot testing, and in pilot testing what happens? Now you have ensured a good implementation of a performance management system. You have trained the raters, you have decided about the kind of system that you want to introduce, right. You are ready with the appraisal form, but you are not going to start it for the whole organization, right. So, before moving for finally implementing the system, you are going to test it, okay, on a set of sample, maybe one department, right, and see that what is happening, what kind of feedback you are getting. So, based on the feedback that you get, you try to make some adjustments, see what are the problems that you are facing, what kind of problem related to the scaling, appraisal form, difficulties in recording the performance data. So, you will be able to identify these issues, okay, and if you need to make any corrections before it is finally implemented. Otherwise, if you do not go for pilot testing, you will be not able to correct anything which could be a problem related to the scaling techniques, related to the measurement of the behavior, even the kind of appraisal form that you are using, right. So, because the systems, if you look at it from the systems users perspective, those who are going to make use of this system, especially the managers, and how they are going to react to this system. So, get their reactions, use that feedback. So, if you go for it, probably what happens, you get better acceptance, and once it is accepted in one part of the organization, you can move on, right, and implement that in the organization, right. So, first of all, you roll out a test version with a small group in one department, see what happens, and then you move to fully implement in a planned way for the entire organizations, right. So, that you are not able to create any problem, right. So, when you are want to fully implement a PMS in the organization, make sure that all the participants who are going to do this job have a record of issues encountered, okay. They are not going to record appraisal scores, they are going to identify what kind of issues are coming up, right. And once all the input is received from the pilot test, then that is incorporated or embedded in the final version, right. So, that now you have a full fledged PMS system for introducing in the entire organization, and that would have a wider acceptance, right. Now, once PMS is implemented organization wise, what you are going to do? Make sure that yes, you are able to monitor and evaluate it, how the PM system is working, right. Whether it is, and what you are going to evaluate, whether the performance management system is working effectively, whether and you are not going to encounter any problem related to form, scaling, measurement, recording of the data, right, and whether you are able to implement as per your plan in the entire organization or not, right, and whether this performance system management system that you have produced is really giving good results or not, because if it is not giving good results or it is not giving intended results that you want the system to come out, that is an accurate assessment of the performance of the employee, then this PM system is not going to be effective, right. So, make sure that it gives accurate results, right. So, how we are going to see the evaluations, what is the reactions to the system, how what kind of feedback is given by the managers about the performance management systems, what kind of problems are coming, especially related to operation and the technology that you are using, right, and how the ratings are, whether ratings are without any biases and without any errors, or they are having certain biases, right. So, what actually important here is that when you are going to use these kind of systems, you are using technology. Now, most of the organizations have gone for automated performance management systems, right. So, and that gives you an edge over the manual performance system, because in an automated performance system, suppose you are using a software. So, everything is recorded and it is kept there, okay, throughout the year. So, it gives you a better assessment of performance ratings, and the kind of data that you have is going to be more accurate, right. And then what are the measures that you are going to use for monitoring and evaluation? These are the metrics that could be used, right. How many peoples have been evaluated, right, how the performance rating is distributed across a set of sample, what kind of information you have, right. How much follow up has been done, right, whether you are going for this performance discussion meeting after this or not, are people satisfied with the performance management system or not, okay, what is the return on investment of this particular system, right. And what is the performance? Ultimately, you are going to measure the performance, right? Whether people are able or individuals are able to perform as per their expectations as the standards or not, right. Now, we are going for online implementations using electronic websites, right. Even appeal filing and all kind of things are done in a electronic mode, so that it gives more accuracy and assessment of the results. So, it is very important to use emails, electronic newsletters, websites, even appeal filing can be done electronically, even training programs are also done electronically, right, where you can implement in online, so that people understand what are the what kind of errors they are making and how to avoid it, right. So, it has certain advantage because you are going for automation. So, accuracy and speed is maintained, cost is less, right, and you get information more effectively, right, and with a less cost. And you can also link it with HR functions, other HR functions. So, suppose he is performing very well. So, you see that okay, he is eligible for promotion, he gets higher rewards and these kind of things. And if an automated performance management system, probably it would be easy to monitor performance at the individual, organizational and unit level, right. But it has certain limitations, because you may not be following the best practices, okay, and how, when you, if you want to improve, then again you have to go for it, because it is very difficult to improve the online version, because again you have to write code, go for a program and these kind of things, right, and it may be more complicated, and if you are not going to use it properly, then probably it is going to be a waste of time and resources. So, make sure that if you are going for an online system, okay, you are going to use and make sure that it is giving the desired results, right. Thank you very much.